Hi guys, my name is Vivek and in this video tutorial we are going to talk about Data Mart. Before we start today's tutorial, I have a small request. If you have not subscribed to my channel already, please go ahead and do it now so that you get a notification every time I upload a new video tutorial. Now when we talk about Data Mart, these are the key points that should come to your mind. Data Mart contains a subset of warehouse data. It is a subject oriented database, and guys, this is very important. It usually contains data for a particular department or line of business. It is faster to implement, easy to access, and cost effective in comparison to a data warehouse. Now let's understand these points in detail with the help of a insurance domain example. In insurance sector, we have different departments and their associated work areas are well defined. For example, sales department is responsible for selling the policies. Commission department is responsible for providing on time accurate commissions to the agent who sell the policies. HR department is responsible for hiring, onboarding and human resource activities. Similarly, we have departments like underwriting, claims, marketing, etc., who function according to their job profile. Now, every such department has their own operational database which feeds the data to the organizational warehouse. In the warehouse, the data is cleaned, collated, and it is used to make organizational, strategic, and tactical decisions. The important thing to note here is that the data warehouse contains data for all the departments of the organization, and in order to maintain such data we need huge infrastructure and we need individual who understand cross functional data. This means the person who is building the warehouse should understand all these processes pretty well, otherwise we will have shoddy data in our data warehouse. And this is the basic difference between data warehouse and data mart. While data warehouse contains the data more at organizational level, data mart contains the data at a department or line of business level. Here we have a sales data mart that contains only sales related data. And this actually makes sense to a great extent because a sales manager does not really care about what's happening in underwriting or actuarial department. His main concern is to sell the policies and complete his target. Similarly, an underwriter does not care about the marketing spend of the company. His main concern is to have quick access to relevant data with these. So guys, these are the points that you should note. Data mart has department level data while the data warehouse has data for all the departments. That means data mart has a subset of the warehouse data. At time you will see that data marts are also created on the basis of geography or date. So right now we were saying that data marts are only created on the basis of departments, but at times you will see that they are also created on the basis of geography or date, but mostly they are combined with line of business. For example, we may have a sales data mart that contains data for the last 10 years for the region North America. So here we have associated line of business with a particular tenure of 10 years and for a particular region North America. So we have established few points here. Let's quickly recap them. Data marts are more on department level, or you can say we will have specific data marts serving specific departments. Since they contain a subset of the data, they are faster to build and more secure. So you can implement a data mart in a matter of weeks while implementing a warehouse can take months to years. And how I am saying that it is more secure? For example, underwriter will not have access to HR data mart, thus restricting access to salary data for HR employees only. So when we have created separate departmental data mart, we have a separate data mart for HR, we have a separate data mart for underwriting. The access level or the users will also be specifically defined. This can be achieved in the warehouse also, but in that the possibility of a miss is slightly higher than what we have in a data mart. Since you have data only for a particular line of business, the queries will be less complex, giving you faster and precise insights. So in the data mart, the number of tables that you have will be lower than what you have in a warehouse. So you don't have to join too many tables to obtain the data. So the queries that you will write will be less complex, because these queries are specifically written to be accessed by people of a specific line of business. So the tables are created in a way that they can be easily accessed. Also, since data mart contain only a subset of data, the number of sources for data mart will be low in comparison to data warehouse. Now let's understand a little more, how do we classify data marts based on their sources. So we classify them in three categories: dependent, independent and hybrid. When the data mart has a single source, which means that the data is first collated from all the operational databases into the organizational warehouse, and that organizational warehouse serves as the source or input for our data mart. In that case, we call such data marts as dependent data marts. If the data mart is directly fed from the operational database and there is no warehouse in between, in that case we call such data mart as independent data marts. And then we have our third option, where both operational databases and warehouse serve as the input or source for our data mart. In that case we refer it as hybrid data marts. Now let's understand, how do we implement a data mart. Implementing a data mart is a 5-step process. Initially, you identify the requirements that the data mart is supposed to serve. You identify the data sources which will provide the required data, and then you finalize the scope. Post this, the logical and physical data models are created. That means you will identify the entities and the attributes that will be a part of the data mart. This phase is called designing. Once the designing phase is complete, you procure the required infrastructure to build the application. These includes licenses, servers, etc. And then you create the database object structure. So at this point you have completed two phases. You have done the design phase, and based on that you have created all the tables. Now you will have to populate that data. In order to do that, you build the required ETL process to clean the data and populate it in the database. Initially, the historical data will be populated one time, followed by a scheduled process to populate the data on a regular intervals. So once you have built the data mart, you will do a one-time historical population of all the data, and then you will create a scheduled batch process, possibly which will run on a nightly basis to populate the data on regular intervals. Now we have designed the system, created the tables, populated the tables. It's time to access the data. Here we create the required views, implement the reporting and dashboarding tools which can be accessed by the end user to effectively analyze the data and make data-driven decisions. Now that we have created the data mart, it's being populated, we have created the reporting and dashboarding on top of that. We will have to manage this entire process. We will have to extend the functionality as required, and we will optimize it on a regular basis for quick response, and we will keep the access level to the right stakeholders. While we know that the data mart help us in building a story around a line of business, its basic advantages over our data warehouse are fast implementation, low cost and precise insights. Developing a data warehouse is a tedious and challenging activity which can take a long amount of time, while data mart can be implemented in a matter of weeks, and that is because it contains only a subset of the warehouse data. Since it has less data, the infrastructure required to build the data mart is considerably less. At the same time, since the implementation is faster, you don't require too many resources from different departments to implement that data mart. As we have mentioned earlier, that the mart corresponds to a particular line of business, so the subject matter expert of that line of business can successfully and precisely implement the warehouse. And since we have low amount of data, we get faster response for our queries, and the complexity level are also low. So these are some of the advantages that data mart offer over a data warehouse. Now, what are some of the challenges that we have with data marts? The first one is times an organization create too many data marts that have similar kind of information and they don't add too much value to the organization in general. For example, there is a possibility that for HR and finance data mart there is a huge redundancy or overlapping of data and we are not getting too much value out of it, so it may make more sense to make a combined data mart for both the sections. Second point that we have is that since data mart only have subject pertaining data, taking organizational strategic decisions may be challenging because we don't have the data from all line of business in a single place, because of which making the right decision just on the basis of data mart may become challenging. So guys, before I end this tutorial, I have a couple of questions that I want you to answer first. The first is, how does an organization choose whether they should build a warehouse or whether they should build a mart first? And there is a concept called top down and bottom up approach in data warehouse and data mart. Try to answer these questions in the comment below, and if you have any query, I'll be more than happy to answer. In our next video, we are going to discuss what is a data lake, what is ETL versus ELT, and why is data lake gaining so much importance over the last few years. Thanks a lot guys for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.